Alright, this should be the start of like a second part, but anyway, the grind just keeps going. At the time of recording this, I have like, I have less than, I have less than 3 weeks till the month's over. I fell behind so bad. That's the thing, I spun the first wheel like as soon as the season ended, and then I just ended up falling off massively, before getting shit done. Whatever. Let's just try. All we can do is try. Hope for a better future, a better tomorrow. Okay, solo leveling. That's an interesting one. I can't say for sure if I'll like it, but it's definitely been one of the more popular ones. It'll be interesting to watch it. I'm definitely interested to like even I myself am interested to see what I'll think of it. Okay, I just got done watching Solo Leveling, all of it. I finished it. I finished the whole thing. But oh man, it's kind of hard to talk about this show. Where do I even start with my feelings on this? It's in a weird middle ground between mid and loving it, because I definitely didn't love it. I don't think it's anything too crazy special, really. It's not bad though. It's definitely not bad. Need to be careful with my words. But first off, there's no surprise to me why it's popular. Like, as I watched it, I'm like, oh, I can see why I can see why this was like the general, like the generically popular show that like everyone was watching. I can see it. Sorry, I got something caught in my throat right now. Maybe not the best time to be recording this, but I just finished it. Like, I always record these just as I finish it. I want to get my thoughts right out there, you know? So, since I did a poor job of this in the first part, I'm going to try to do a better job at describing things, describing the actual plot, giving examples to what I'm talking about. So, first off, this show, it's like our worlds, modern day worlds, but there are these gates that appear, there's monsters on the other side. If you don't destroy the gates in time, then the monsters start coming out of the gates. So hunters, these people called hunters, go into the gates, they got magic powers, they go into the gates, and they beat the monsters. And, yeah, if you beat the boss of a dungeon, then the gate collapses. So, yay, no one has to be attacked by the monsters coming out in our world. It's kind of what you're seeing in the background is literally the part of the show that explains it right now. I like it because it's modern. It's modern day fantasy. Modern fantasy is always better than fantasy set in fucking medieval times. This show isn't an isekai. It's not an isekai. It's not set in medieval times. It's got like fantasy stuff. There's demons and goblins through these gates, but it's also just like people just live in cities, and it's just normal day cities and everything. And so I like that because I like modern fantasy, and I think it's way cooler of a setting than medieval fantasy. Almost always, like in Chainsaw Man or like Demon Girl Next Door, it's just way cooler when it's just like, oh, it's just a modern city, but then there's still like all this like fantasy shit going on. I like that. So I do like that aspect. The fact that it's not an isekai is part of the appeal to me. I don't know if it's part of the appeal to other people, but the fact that it's just like a bit more grounded, I appreciate that. Sadly, though, it's a generic kind of weakest character plot. It's like, oh, the MC's the weakest one. Ooh, he's the weakest one, guys. And then he gets gifted with the powers to be OP, and so he's not the weakest one anymore. And I don't know why shows think this is interesting or makes someone an underdog. It doesn't. It makes them. They used to be an underdog, now they're not, though. It's no longer an underdog story. It's just a guy that's OP. He just wasn't in the first episode. That somehow makes up for it. But yeah, the show starts out with a bang. People do a thing, and then shit goes wrong. And people start dying because of that shit going wrong. It's very SAO or Attack on Titan, where they kind of just have that big bang at the start that makes for a really gripping premise. And that's part of why I said, not surprised this was a popular mainstream show. It makes a lot of sense. People love those. Those always end up being popular. But you know, as far as the whole show goes, it's not that revolutionary. The main guy kind of like they go basically in the first episode they go through this dungeon. A bunch of people die except for like 5 people. I think it's 5. 5 people make it out. One of them's the main character, but he makes it out by following, like, figuring out the trick to surviving and everyone else abandoning him. And he figures out the trick to surviving and he becomes the player, so now he can get stronger. In this world, people have magical powers, but you can't get stronger. Your powers never get better, so people are, like, given a rank, and it's like, that's your rank. You are now that rank, and you're that strong, and you always will be. Some people have a secondary awakening, but it's very rare. Sorry, a reawakening. They have their initial awakening and then they have their reawakening. Not everyone gets that though. It's very rare, and that lets your power go up just once. But then it's like it still has its new just cap where it's like you're that strong now. Same as always. So he gets the ability to level up. He gets a video game screen in front of his face that no one else can see, and he has stats and he has IRL dailies he's got to do, and he's got dungeons that he can go into that no one else can go into, but he can still level up by going into the gates that people in the normal world can go into as well. So it's all very, like, basically he can just, yeah, he can get stronger. So yeah, he can level up and he's able to actually develop and grow stronger. That's why it's called solo leveling. He's the only one that is leveling because no one else can level up. So it is still, despite not being an isekai, still a generic power fantasy where the guy's the weakest. Now he's got an OP ability that no one else has, which is the ability to level up, and he gets skills and he gets stronger as he levels up and gets more stats and everything like that. And he gets gear that like no one else can get, and the gear has abilities and he has abilities and the abilities level up. There's a whole thing, right? It's like it's a generic power fantasy in that way. Main character even like starts looking more hot because of it, because he starts like having to work out for his IRL dailies and stuff. It's pretty funny. It reminded me of Parasite in that way. He kind of goes through like a sex pestification, like in that show, where he becomes a fucking hot guy. Nurses ask him out and shit. Very, very power fantasy. Also, the show does not do exposition quite well. I've just been doing a bunch of exposition, and honestly, the show doesn't do it much better than what I just did for you. Really. It just kind of dumps it on you, doesn't weave it into the show much at all. It just kind of tells you everything very matter-of-factly. And the way it's just presented is weird, because, like, sure, when it's a guy narrating, and you're setting up basic stuff, whatever, it's bad and lazy, but it's not that, like, it's not that crazy. But, like, in episode 4, the main character there's this moment in episode 4 where he's sitting there looking at his stats, and he's thinking about, like, how they work, but he's saying it out loud. Like, they animate his mouth moving, and it's clear he's saying it out loud. They didn't even make it an internal thought. He just sits in a room where no one else is there. He's just sitting by himself, and he's like, so this stat probably does that, and this stat probably does that. Maybe I should put things into that stat. But I've been putting things into this stat because I think it's the best one. Like, shit like that. And it's like, why are you saying this out loud? At least make it internal thoughts. That's, like, the most basic shit. And the whole show does this. The whole show always has him, when he's alone, just saying shit aloud. It's like, you can just have it be an internal thought. Why does he have to say it out loud? It's very strange. They also have that a lot with, like, other characters just explaining things to other characters, and it's like, they should know this. The person you're talking to knows this. Why are you telling them something they should already know? Very poor exposition throughout the whole thing, really. It has kind of weird pacing. There's a lot of loose ends, but it's very web novel-y, or like webcomic-y, rather, not web novel, webcomic in its pacing, so it doesn't surprise me that it's got this weird pacing. But it is something to know. It's not even that big of a deal. Like, it doesn't really cause issues for me. It's just something I noticed. It kind of reminds me of Ranking of Kings in the way it's paced. It reminds me of that, which again was another webcomic. So it's like, they're just like paced this way. It's kind of like, I get it. I get why a serialized webcomic would be end up be like coming out paced that way, so it's like it's not a big negative, but it is something I really noticed throughout, and it I don't know, like I don't think it made me think any less or better of it, but I just felt it so strongly, and it feels like such a like core part of how I feel about the show despite that I have to bring it up. I don't know. I've just been saying I've said a lot of negative things, and I feel kind of bad about that. Honestly, the mechanics are done in a neat way. I like the whole video game IRL dailies and getting quests and getting abilities and getting stronger. I do like that stuff. It was not a negative earlier when I said it's generic. I mean, it wasn't a positive either, really. I think it's done in a neat way. And again, the fact that it's not an isekai, as I said, is a positive. It's bringing in the... It's kind of interesting that it's only him, right? Like, I find it's done in a neat enough way. And overall, the show is very watchable. I found it very easy to just watch an episode and go to the next one and watch another episode, Like, it was very easy to do that. I never felt too, like I was being dragged through it, or that it was annoying, or that I didn't want to watch another episode right now, or that I wanted to move on or anything. It's very watchable. It was very good at doing that, so that's a massive positive. I never really felt bored by it, so that's a good thing. And that's kind of why I did end up finishing the whole thing, because overall, I enjoyed watching it, and I thought there was some neat stuff in there. There just are a lot of issues that make me think, like, damn, this could have been better. This could have been... Like, I could have felt the same way that a bunch of other people feel. Because a bunch of people talk about how much they love this, and I'm like, I can see why you feel that way, but it's not enough for me to feel that way. Like, the way it does things just doesn't... It doesn't click to the same way for me. And that's a shame. Because obviously I want to find more shows that I really like, but I can see where it would, if it was just a bit better in a specific way, it would have appealed to me more. And another big way is the fights. Oh my god, the fights. Now look, they're flashy. They're very flashy, they're very pretty, they got cool looking shots, they got fast moving camera angles, they got like electricity and lights going everywhere, and all these like and big like movements where like there's all these blur lines and everything, and it's like it's really cool and crazy with camera angles and people jumping around and slashing at the enemy and doing all this cool stuff, right? But it's not interesting choreography. It's just that there's pretty colors, pretty lights, and cool camera movements and stuff. It's just things move fast and look pretty and flash a bunch. But overall, the fights choreography is lackluster, and the ending to fights is usually pretty lackluster too. A lot of fights follow the same kind of pacing where it's like, show how tough the opponent is by beating up the main character a bunch. Oh no, he's at the edge of death, he's gonna lose, every attack he's doing isn't working, the enemy's like armor is too tough, or they're too fast, or he just doesn't get a chance to fight back, he's just getting wailed on, just bam, 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 all these attacks going off on him, and he's like, and he's getting beat up a bunch, and they show how strong it is, and then he gets like one attack in, and it's like, okay, now he wins. He got the one attack in, guys, he figured out how to get past the enemy's armor, and now he's won. And it's so lame. It's like early Naruto. Like, Naruto wins... If you don't know in Naruto, his fight against Neji, he wins that in one punch. When he comes out of the ground and punches Neji, that's the first hit Naruto lands, and it knocks Neji out. Even though Naruto got hit a bunch and knocked out multiple times in that fight, and then, like... But he got back up, and he's like... And he gives a big speech, and then he does the big punch, and it's like... This is the big emotional climax, so it's also the climax of the fight. That's the same problem this show has. He doesn't do much damage to them, but then he gets like one hit in as he proclaims, I will get better, I will do this, and it's like, oh, now he wins. Because he wants to win. He's got that determination in him. He got that dog in him, you know? It's very, like, annoying. I hate when fights are done this way. It's like, this guy got beat the shit out of so much by the enemy, but then he gets like one hit in and the fight's over, and it's just like, that's such a lame way to end it. But because it was long, because there was a lot of exchanges where he, tried to attack but failed a bunch, and because he's been hit a bunch and it's been a long enough fight, and he had a big emotional moment where he proclaimed something as he gets the attack in, it's like, if you don't think about it too much, it's like, yeah, that feels right. But then, when you think about it a little, you're like, wait a minute, that was the first attack he landed. That's the only attack he landed. It's kind of lame that he just won that. It's just like, the plot has decided the fight is over now. So it's over now. He just kind of wins. And it's mostly by stabbing the enemy in the eye. There's a big spider. He's like, oh, it's exoskeleton, it's too hard. He runs around a bunch trying to hit it. It fails, it fails, it fails, it fails, it fails. He never gets a good hit in. He just bounces off the armor. He gets hit by the spider a bunch. He's getting tossed around. He has to use a full recovery to get his stamina back. But then he runs in, he finally gets to stab the spider in the eye, and it's like, and then he wins. He won. He stabbed it in the eye, he wins. It's like, what? And because it's made worse by the fact it keeps happening. Later, when he's fighting Cerberus, it's literally called Cerberus, it just is Cerberus, the free-headed dog, gatekeeper of hell. He's fighting Cerberus, he's getting beat up a shit ton. Just pam, pam, bam, bam, wow, pam, thank you, ma'am. He's getting the shit beat out of him. He almost dies. He has to, drink this potion that, gives him stronger armor and something else to try and survive. And he's bit by Cerberus, and, half his body's hanging out of fucking Cerberus. But then he grabs his sword and he stabs him in the eye. And he stabs him in the eye again. And he just stabs him in the eye, 10 times. And then Cerberus dies. Because one of his heads, one of the eyes of one of the head got stabbed a bunch. I know it's got poison and paralysis and shit on it. It's got abilities in the sword, the dagger rather. But it's this is Cerberus. He's meant to be way higher level than the main character. They establish he's higher level, and then he's getting his shit kicked out of him, and he can't get a single attack in. But then he stabs one of the eyes of one of the dog a handful of times, and then the dog just dies. It's like, what? I don't think that should win the fight, really. Later, he's fighting this big armored guy. This, Blood Knight armor. I can't remember what he's called. It's, one of the final fights in season 1. He's fighting this guy, and he's like, oh, the exoskeleton of this guy's armor is so hard. I'm wailing away at it, but I can't get through. This guy's exoskeleton of armor? What am I talking about? The armor's too tough. He's trying to fight through this armor. He can't get through it. He comments how tough it is multiple times. He's getting wailed on. He's getting kicked around like a fucking... like a piece of cheese. He's got nothing going on. He's getting destroyed by this guy. But then he's like, ooh, but I want to be strong and stab. Oh, I got him in the eye. And then he just, runs at him and pushes him back while stabbing him in the eye, and then he gets him against the wall, and then he stabs him in the neck, and he literally, thinks, I just need to stab even harder, and then he just, stabs the neck and wins. And it's just that's lame. This guy was destroying you, wailing on you for ages. He threw you, across the room into a wall and shit, and he punched you, 1,000 times. But then you just, stab him in the eye and then just say, man, I want to stab even harder because this is my big emotional moment where I will become stronger, stab even harder. And now you get to win. Why? It's just, so lame. Every end to the fight is lame. Every fight has lame choreography. Again, they look pretty, and that's able to keep me watching them. But I'm never sitting there, excited, oh, what's going to happen next in the fight? How is he going to get around the limitations, so many anime is the character figuring out how to best utilize their skills, and they use their skills and abilities in unique or interesting ways, or in combination in interesting ways, or they find a loophole in the enemy's abilities, or they figure out some kind of trick to it, and it's interesting to see that happen and see how they get around what seems like an insurmountable battle. That doesn't happen here. It's establish it's an insurmountable battle, have the main guy do big yell, and stab him in the eye. Big yell, eye stab, that wins them all. That'll win you every fight. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes he does have more of an actual fight, but it's still never got that interesting figure out. It's just oh, they just fight for a while and then he wins. But most of the time, it's a big yell, eye stab, and that does it. That does it for you. Again, very nice looking, which was able to keep me interested enough to not be bored during the fights. I was not bored, remember, I said before, I wasn't really bored watching this, but it definitely doesn't keep me exciting, like, ooh, I want to see the next fight, what's gonna happen in this fight. It's just like, alright, time to stop paying attention and look at the pretty colors. So yeah, overall, it's solid, it's enjoyable, I liked watching it, but it's nothing crazy special. And honestly, those flaws aren't too massive, like I said. All I care about at the end of the day, as like the main factor, is like, was it enjoyable? And I did enjoy watching it. I did enjoy watching it enough to finish it. I just don't think it's anything too crazy special. But I also don't think it's bad. Maybe a 6? Maybe a 6. I'm thinking maybe a 6 or a 7. 7 if I'm generous. It's probably a 6. A 6 or a 7, I guess. So, like, B tier. It's like a B tier show, basically. I hope I explained well enough why I thought that and gave good examples. When I was editing part 1, I felt like I didn't explain things well enough, so I'm hoping I did a lot better of that now. This was a long one, but hey, it's a show I finished, so it should be a long part. This is the longest part ever, like that, or rather the longest I've talked about one show for. And let's not go back to the wheel. What's this? Yes, we're not going to go back to the wheel just yet, because there was a show I forgot to put on the wheel, because it's not a show, it's just one episode. It's a one episode ONA called, like, Monsters something. It's what, Oda, the author of One Piece, it's what he made. He made it before One Piece. It was like a one-shot thing, and it got an adaptation. That's on Netflix. It's just one episode. It's a one episode ONA. It came out in January, I think January 22nd, so that makes it part of the winter season, even though it was just one episode. Because it was one episode, because it was an ONA, I forgot to put it on the wheel, even though it is available, and it is from that season. But it's also just one episode, so because I remembered it existed, let's just do it now. As in, it's still gonna cut, because I haven't watched it yet. I'll go watch it, it's just one episode, and then I'll come back and give my thoughts on that. And then we'll spin the wheel. So I'll be back with Monsters. So, sorry if my voice sounds different. I had COVID. Monsters 103 Mercies Dragon Damnation. That's the name of it. I just watched it. It's pretty good. It's a one episode thing, so like, I don't actually have too much to say about it. There's not too much it can explore in such a short time. I can just say, like, yeah, it's good. It's very obviously Oda, so the designs are great. The animation for it was done really well. It's got some cool cinematography. It had a twist that I didn't see coming, so that was actually pretty cool. I was like, oh yeah, like, it's nothing crazy, but it's like, I didn't expect that. That's definitely not where I thought it was going, so it got me with that. But yeah, it's just a fun little thing. It's kind of hard to judge something so short. The fact that it is short is kind of a negative, because, like I said, it just doesn't get to explore with too much. But, I had a good time watching it. I am glad that I watched it, and I did sit through the whole thing. It's like 25 minutes. It's got some good characters. It's got some good animation, as I said. It's very Oda, not just in its characters, but also, like, its story. Like, it's very, like, you can tell he wrote it. And at the end, they also throw in a little thing that, like, links it to One Piece. Because you can kind of do that. Like, One Piece is so big and expensive that you can just be like, yeah, this short little story, it happened in the One Piece world, just on one of the islands, wherever. You can just say that happened, and there's no contradiction, really. So they find a way to tie it in at the end, which is, it's neat, I guess, but yeah. For what it is, it's pretty good, and I like it. It's fun that they made that, adapt to one of Oda's earlier little one-shots. He did like 5 of them before he did One Piece, with the 5th one being One Piece. Also, that's why I'm using One Piece footage in the background, because just the way I record this and stuff means that I can't put monster footage in the background. Monsters 103 footage in the background because there's just weirdness in how I record this, alright? Don't ask questions, just deal with it. It's a nice, good little thing. It's 25 minutes, so it's not much of a commitment to honestly just check it out yourself. You don't need One Piece knowledge to enjoy it. It's just a fun little story about a guy saving a town, and I liked it. Welcome back to the wheel, the big, supple, succulent, moist wheel. Bluesbuck in the Discord was saying I need to make sure I'm giving the wheel a lot of reverence, so that's what that's about. Whatever, let's just fucking spin this bastard. What atrocities will it make me have to watch today? Fluffy Paradise, which one is that? I don't even remember. What? I don't remember anything being called that. Hold up. I like to give my thoughts before I watch something as well, so I need to check what this is. Hang on. Oh, is it this one? Oh, it's this one. I don't have high hopes for this one. I guess that's all I have to say about it, really. I don't have high hopes. Alrighty, I just got done watching Fluffy Paradise. Now, I did not ever stop and read the Japanese title correctly, so I didn't realize it's a fucking isekai, but isekai's in the Japanese title. Yeah, some chick's walking home, and she just fucking dies as soon as she gets in her house. Not even 1 minute into the show, she just drops dead from overworking, and then she meets God, and it's just, this is incredibly generic, ain't it? It's really generic. She meets God. She says, I want to pet fluffy things. And so God's like, alrighty. And he like reincarnates her in a fantasy world, and he makes it so that all animals, except humans, like her. That doesn't mean human hates her. It's just that like all animals like her by default. Humans don't. Humans are just, they're normal. They like or dislike her based on other things. Although, given that she's an isekai protagonist, and given what happens in the first episode, it seems like everyone's just gonna fucking like her anyway. Who gives a shit about dynamics or relationships or stakes? I'm being a little overly harsh with that comment. It's like, it's just not very interesting, is mainly what it comes down to. Direction is pretty flat, which doesn't help. Animation is very just normal, and the art style, my god, is it bland. It's like, yeah, it's like isekai world, but it's like nothing has a like interesting or unique design. Everything looks exactly the way you'd expect. I don't like the way they draw the backgrounds as well, so like the art style is just like, it's just fucking so bland. It's just basic. It's just like the most basic bitch shit imaginable. um yeah, but mainly, so like the fact that I don't enjoy looking at it, and then also it's not very interesting, and there's nothing for me to really grip onto and find interesting, just leaves me with a very flat, bland isekai. I mean, it's kind of cute. It's got cute moments. Main girl is cute, and the way she reacts to fluffy and cute animals is cute. But that couldn't even sustain me for one episode. I mean, when it came on screen, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute, but like, I struggled to even finish episode one. So I'm not gonna fucking get through an entire show of this, am I? Don't think so. Uh, so yeah, that's the gist. I got the idea. I get what it is. And that's a drop for me. I guess I didn't say that at the start. I watched episode one. I think at the start I said I finished watching. I should have been more clear. I finished episode one. If I didn't say that, I'm sorry I didn't say that earlier. I watched one episode and it's a drop. That's it. Let's go spin that fucking wheel.